If you ever see a job listing with no company name, no contact number, and an address that doesn't show up on GPS, don't apply. I did. It was for a night orderly at a private mental hospital. The pay was generous, almost suspiciously so. The rules, however, were insane. Rule number 3 still echoes in my head. If a patient knocks on your door between 2 o'clock and 2:15 a.m., no matter what they say, do not answer, even if it's your own voice. I thought it was some kind of joke until the knocking started. I was down on my last $20 when I saw the listing. It wasn't on Indeed or Glassdoor, but on some sketchy job forum buried in the darker corners of the web. The post was straightforward. Night orderly needed a private psychiatric facility. $5,000 weekly. Lodging included. Immediate placement. Too good to be true, of course. But desperation makes a man bold. I applied. No resume, no references. I just clicked a green button labeled, "I'm interested." Within 5 minutes, my phone buzzed. "Congratulations, Mr. Martin. You've been selected. Directions to the facility will follow. Please arrive by 6 p.m. tonight." There was no callback number. I should have taken a hint. I should have walked away. The hospital was nestled deep in the forest outside Ashmore County, nowhere near the map's routes. It was like the GPS got lost trying to find it. The sun dipped below the tree line as my old Honda climbed the winding dirt path. Finally, at the top of a narrow hill, it came into view. White stone walls, iron gates, no signs, just a looming Gothic structure that looked like it belonged in a 19th century horror novel. The iron gate creaked open on its own as I approached, as though it had been waiting for me. Inside the courtyard, a tall, rail-thin man with hollow cheeks and slick-back hair waited in a black coat. He didn't smile, didn't blink, just motioned for me to follow. "You're Martin, yes?" he asked in a low, monotone voice. "Yes," I said, stepping out. "I am Dr. Ignatius Crane. I oversee operations at Black Hollow Institute." Black Hollow. Of course, it had a name that sounded like an Edgar Allan Poe poem. Crane turned and walked toward the massive double doors. I trailed behind, the wheels in my mind churning. Everything about this felt wrong, but $5,000 a week. I told myself I'd stay for a few days, just long enough to pay my debts. Maybe take a short vacation afterward and get my life back together. The inside was just as unsettling. Dimly lit hallways, high ceilings with cobwebs in the corners. The scent of antiseptic mixed with something older, something earthy and rotting. Crane led me to a sitting room lined with antique furniture. A massive grandfather clock ticked in the corner, the sound so loud it seemed to punctuate the silence like a warning. "Before you begin," he said, sliding a small black folder across the table, "you must read and agree to these rules." There were 10 of them, typed on yellowing paper with red ink that looked disturbingly like dried blood. I skimmed them, scoffing internally. 1. Do not speak to patient 13 under any circumstances. 2. Avoid the mirror in the east wing after midnight. 3. If someone knocks on your door between 2 o'clock and 2:15 a.m., do not answer, even if it's your own voice. 4. Do not follow humming sounds, no matter how close they seem. 5. You may hear screaming from room 7. Ignore it. No one is inside. 6. If you see a woman in a nurse's uniform from the 1940s, walk away. Do not acknowledge her. 7. Lights will flicker between 3 o'clock and 3:03 a.m. Stay still. 8. Patients are to be fed only food from the designated cart. Never bring them outside snacks. 9. Never enter the attic. 10. If you forget any of these rules, you will be reminded. Once, "You're serious with this?" I asked, chuckling. Dr. Crane didn't blink. Deadly. He pulled out a pen. Sign or leave. I stared at the rules. They were so specific, so detailed. But what was the harm in playing along? I signed and sealed my fate. That first night, I was given a narrow room on the 3rd floor. Simple cot, small desk, rusted sink. A single bulb dangled from the ceiling, casting long shadows that shifted with the flickering light. I was to do hourly rounds, 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., and report any anomalies to the front desk by phone, though they made it clear no one would answer after midnight unless it was life-threatening. The halls at night were oppressively quiet. No chatter, no footsteps, no beeping monitors. Just that faint buzzing sound from the fluorescent lights and the distant ticking of the grandfather clock. Room 13 was at the far end of the east wing. The door was bolted shut with thick steel latches, and a red X was painted across it. Every time I passed it, the temperature dropped noticeably, like stepping into a freezer. Once, as I passed, I thought I heard breathing on the other side. Slow, ragged, and human. I backed away. Around midnight, I passed a hallway mirror. It was cracked, the surface warped. My reflection was delayed by a second. I waved. My reflection didn't. It just stood there, watching me. Then it smiled. I stumbled backward, heart thundering, then looked again. Just my normal reflection. I told myself it was fatigue, a trick of the light. Maybe I dozed off standing up. At 1:50 a.m., I returned to my room. My legs ached, and my eyes burned from lack of sleep. I lay on the cot, staring at the ceiling, until I drifted into a shallow, uneasy rest. Then, at exactly 2:08 a.m., came the knock. Knock, knock, knock. I sat up straight, heart pounding. Rule 3 flashed in my head. I stood, quietly tiptoeing to the door. "Hey, man," a voice whispered from the other side. My voice. "It's Martin. You dropped your keys, remember? Open up." I froze. It wasn't possible. I hadn't dropped my keys. And that voice was me, down to the exact pitch. "Come on, don't be weird," the voice said, more urgent now. "Open the damn door." The doorknob jiggled. I backed away, trembling. The voice didn't sound human anymore. It sounded like it was straining through broken teeth, forced through torn vocal cords. A mockery of speech. Then the voice started laughing. A high-pitched, wheezing cackle that turned into growling. Scratching noises scraped against the door like fingernails on wood. And then, silence. By 2:15, it stopped. I sat against the far wall, breathing fast, too afraid to speak. The rest of the night passed in quiet unease. The hospital felt more alive than ever. Shadows moved on their own. Doors opened slightly and then closed, as though testing the limits of my sanity. In the morning, I met Dr. Crane again at the dining hall. "How was your first shift?" he asked, sipping black coffee. I didn't know how to answer. I stared at him, uncertain whether to report what I'd experienced. I finally muttered, "I heard something at 2 a.m. Crane looked over his cup. "But you didn't open the door, did you?" "No." He nodded, approving. "Then you'll be fine. For now." That "for now" stuck with me. As I returned to my room to rest before the next shift, I found a new note slipped under my door. It was on the same yellowing paper, with that same red ink. Rule 11. If you see someone who looks exactly like you inside the hospital, do not engage. Run. They are learning. My hands trembled as I read it. I hadn't told anyone about what happened last night, not even Crane. And yet, somehow, the hospital knew. It's strange how quickly fear becomes part of your routine. The next night, I walked the halls of Black Hollow with a flashlight in one hand and the rule sheet in the other. I hadn't slept much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw myself standing outside that door, smiling, waiting. I kept reminding myself, $5,000 a week, just 5 nights. That's all I needed. But the hospital, it didn't play fair. By the second shift, I started noticing details that weren't there the night before. Portraits on the walls that had blank faces. Patients I never saw during the day, roaming the corridors at night. And the staff, those who remained after dark, moved like they were part of the building itself. Silent, mechanical. That night, I was assigned an additional task: deliver medication to room 9. According to the logbook, the patient was mute and largely catatonic. No danger. I took the tray, a covered dish, a pill cup, and a glass of water, and headed down the east wing. Room 9 was 2 doors down from the infamous room 13. As I passed the ladder, I felt the usual drop in temperature, like the hallway exhaled a breath made of ice. I paused at room 9. The door was cracked open slightly, as if someone had forgotten to close it completely. I gently pushed it open. The room was dark except for a weak yellow light coming from a fixture above the bed. The patient sat upright, perfectly still, staring at the wall. He looked like me. Same facial structure, same messy brown hair, same faint scar above the left eyebrow from when I fell off a bike at 10. The tray clattered from my hand, and the water spilled across the floor. The figure didn't react. I backed out slowly, heart racing, and slammed the door shut. I turned the lock and stood there, shaking, trying to convince myself it was a coincidence, a trick of the light. I rushed back to the main desk. Room 9, I whispered to the nurse on duty, an elderly woman with clouded eyes. That patient, he looks like me. Exactly like me. She didn't look surprised. Then don't go back in there. That's it. She handed me a pen. Signed the incident log. I scrawled my name and the time. She flipped to a previous page and pointed to a scribble. Same handwriting. Same name. Martin Cole. Dated 2 months ago. I didn't know what to say. My throat dried up, and I stumbled away. At 1:30 a.m., the lights in the corridor began to flicker. Rule 7. I pressed myself flat against the wall and stood still, not even blinking. From the far end of the hall came the unmistakable sound of footsteps. Slow, deliberate, like someone dragging their feet slightly as they walked. Then came the humming. Soft, sweet, female. Rule 4. Do not follow the humming. But it was getting closer, not fading, like it wasn't coming from a distance. It was blooming from the air itself. The humming passed right by me, even though no one was there. Then laughter. A woman's laughter, somewhere behind me now. I turned, but the hallway was empty, except the mirror. That cracked mirror halfway down the corridor. Something about it fell off. I approached cautiously. My reflection walked in sync with me, just like normal. I tilted my head. It did too. I leaned in, and then my reflection leaned forward faster than I did. Too fast. It slammed its palms against the glass and screamed. No sound, just the visual of its mouth tearing open wider than physically possible. I stumbled back, crashing into a metal tray cart, which clattered loudly down the hall. That's when all the doors started to creak open. Slowly, simultaneously, dozens of eyes peered from the dark rooms. One by one, patients stepped out. Most were silent, dazed looking, but some were grinning. Wide, toothy grins that didn't belong on human faces. They didn't approach. They just stood there, watching, as though waiting for me to do something wrong. The humming returned. This time, it was louder. I turned and bolted toward the stairwell, not caring about protocol, not caring about my duties. My only goal was to find somewhere safe. On the second floor landing, I stopped, breathless. The door to the attic was open. Rule 9. Never enter the attic. It was never unlocked before. Yet there was a jar inviting. Curiosity is a disease in places like this. I should have walked away. I should have pretended it wasn't there. But the humming, it stopped as soon as the attic door opened. I stepped closer. Cobwebs coated the wooden staircase. Dust filled my lungs with each breath. The space was pitch black, but as I reached the top, my flashlight caught something hanging from the beams. Dozens of paper tags. Like toe tags. Each with a name. Each written in red ink. I scanned them. Jared Finch. Lena Moore. Marcus Ellison. Martin Cole. My name again. Multiple times. With different dates. One tag had tomorrow's date. Then something moved in the shadows. A silhouette, too tall, too thin, unfolded from the corner. Its joints cracked as it moved, as though it had too many bones or not enough. The flashlight flickered. The figure stepped into the light. It was the same me I saw in room 9, but now its eyes were completely black, like hollow sockets dripping shadows. I ran, nearly fell down the attic steps, slamming the attic door behind me. I turned and was face to face with Nurse Ellis, the older woman from the desk. "You shouldn't be up here," she said calmly. I saw something. A copy of me. In the attic. In room 9. She nodded, unsurprised. "That's not you. Not yet. What the hell does that mean?" She handed me another note. Same yellowed paper. New rule. Written in red ink. Rule 12. Your reflection may lie. If you see it move on its own, cover all mirrors for the rest of the shift. You can't just keep adding new rules. I shouted, clutching the paper. "Black Hollow is alive, dear," she said, turning away. "And it changes." Back in my room, I did as instructed, tore the mirror from the wall and threw it in the closet, wrapping a towel around the broken glass. The knocking came again at 2:07 a.m. This time, the voice sounded more human. "Martin, please, it's me. You need to let me in. I'm trapped." The voice choked back a sob. "It's not fair. They took something from me. From you. I can help if you just open the door." I sat on the cot, hands covering my ears, rocking back and forth. Then it whispered, "You're already slipping, Martin. You're already forgetting what's real." The laughter that followed wasn't mine. It wasn't even human. At dawn, I approached Dr. Crane before he retreated to his private office. I slammed the rule sheets on his desk. "What the hell is this place?" He looked at me with those dead, emotionless eyes. "A sanctuary. A prison. A mirror. That thing in room 9. It looks like me. Because it is you. Or rather, it's what you leave behind when this place begins to mold you." He stood slowly, pulling another folder from a drawer. "You're not the first. Black Hollow feeds on identity. It latches onto what makes you you. And if you survive long enough, it tries to become you." I flipped through the folder. Photos. Grainy surveillance stills of me walking the halls. Except they were dated weeks before I arrived. "Impossible," I muttered. "Every version of you who breaks the rules ends up in the attic. Or room 9. Or worse." I looked up, dread soaking into my bones. "Worse." Crane gave a faint smile. You haven't met patient 13 yet. The 13th room. Some doors open by invitation, others open by punishment. Dr. Crane, you ever feel like you're not alone inside your own skin? Like there's something else moving with you, thinking what you're thinking, watching through your eyes. Black Hollow doesn't just house the insane, it creates them. And on my third night working here, I learned that room 13 wasn't just a number on a door. It was a threshold, and it had been watching me from the beginning. After the conversation with Dr. Crane, I wandered the halls in a daze. Rule sheet crumpled in my pocket, mind spinning. Identity theft was one thing. This place was trying to steal my soul. The more I thought about it, the more disoriented I became. Had I really just arrived 3 days ago? My memories of the outside world were becoming grainy. Faces were blurring. My own mother's voice, gone. Even worse, I was beginning to forget myself. Not just facts, feelings. Why I took this job, what I was running from, who I was. That's when I saw it. Room 13. For the first 2 nights, the door had been locked. Plain, unassuming, sealed with a bolt and a faded red X. But now, the door stood wide open. Light flickered inside, dim like candlelight. I shouldn't have approached it. I knew Rule 2. Never open room 13. If it opens on its own, report it and leave the area immediately. But the urge to understand outweighed the need to follow orders. I stepped closer. Something was humming from inside. Not music, not a voice. Just vibration. Like the walls themselves were breathing. The hallway around me had gone still. Even the air seemed suspended. I looked around, expecting to see Nurse Ellis or one of the night staff ready to scold me. But the corridor was deserted. Something scratched behind me. I turned. No one. Then I felt it. A hand on my back. Gentle at first. Then it pushed me hard. I stumbled across the threshold of room 13. The door slammed shut behind me. I was trapped. Room 13 was nothing like the other patient rooms. It wasn't sterile or modern. It looked like a shrine. Dozens of mannequins lined the walls, dressed in old hospital gowns, their plastic faces melted or carved with manic grins. Mirrors filled the ceiling, cracked and distorted. In the center of the room sat a hospital bed surrounded by old 4 poles and rusted medical tools. And on the bed lay me, but not quite. This version of me looked decayed, skin pale, lips split and dry, eyes completely white, like something left too long in the dark. Then its eyes twitched, its head turned, and it smiled. "You're late," it whispered. I backed into the wall. My body wouldn't respond right. Legs like jelly, arms numb. I couldn't scream, couldn't blink. "Do you know what this place is?" it asked, sitting up slowly. "W, what are you?" "I'm your placeholder," it said, dragging itself off the bed. Every time someone new enters Black Hollow, something has to step out. And the more you forget, the more space I have to become you. It reached for me. That's when the walls began to bleed. Dark crimson liquid poured from the mirrors and dripped from the ceiling, forming words on the walls. "Remember who you are. Remember who you are. Remember who you are." I screamed. The mannequin closest to me suddenly turned its head and hissed, "Too late." Then I was yanked backward, not by the figure, by the room itself. The walls twisted. The door that had vanished reappeared behind me, and I was hurled out into the corridor like the building had spat me out. The door slammed shut again. Locked. Room 13 was sealed. I lay on the floor, gasping, soaked in sweat and something far colder. My mind was fraying, and I could feel it like invisible vines tightening around my memories. Nurse Ellis found me and helped me up. She didn't even ask what happened. "You're not the first one to get dragged inside," she said gently, "but you're one of the lucky few that made it back." I clutched her arm. "What was that thing in there?" "Your shadow," she said. "Your decay. The part of you the hospital is already digesting." Back in the break room, I found another yellow slip waiting for me. Rule 13. If you enter room 13 and survive, you must complete the cleansing ritual before dawn. If not, your double will walk out in your place. I stared at the clock. 3:14 a.m. I had less than 3 hours. The cleansing ritual wasn't explained on the slip, but I had a hunch. The chapel. Every hospital has one, and Black Hollow's was buried in the basement, forgotten and used. I'd seen it once during orientation. Stained glass windows sealed with metal bars, pews covered in dust, and a giant cross that hung upside down above the altar. I grabbed a flashlight and descended the spiral staircase past the morgue. As I neared the chapel doors, I heard something strange. Children, laughing. I paused. There were no children at Black Hollow. Then the laughter turned to sobbing. Violent, heaving sobs from multiple throats at once. The door to the chapel creaked, open by itself. Inside, a circle of candles had already been lit. Each flame burned with a blue glow, and inside the circle sat a figure in a patient gown, knees hugged to its chest. Its face was covered with a sack. Slowly, the sack lifted on its own. No hands moved it. Underneath was my face. Again, but this one wasn't smiling. It was crying blood. "Help me," it whispered. "Please, you're the real one, right? Tell me I'm not the copy." It crawled toward me. Fast. I stepped back into the circle of candles. The second I did, the entire chapel pulsed, once like a living organ. The thing trying to reach me screamed and burst into ash the second it crossed the threshold. I stood there, trembling, as the blue flames flared higher. A symbol appeared on the floor beneath me, a spiral wrapped in barbed wire. From somewhere behind the altar, I heard the dragging sound again. But this time, something spoke directly into my mind. "You are still incomplete. One piece remains." I returned to my room just as dawn broke. Another rule had been slid under the door. Rule 14. After cleansing, you will begin to see them. Do not engage. Do not listen. If they speak your name, recite your date of birth 3 times and cover all reflective surfaces. I turned to the mirror I'd hidden in the closet. It was uncovered again, and in the reflection behind me stood 4 versions of myself, each wearing a patient's gown, each with identical grins. One of them whispered, "You forgot your birthday, didn't you? Ever wake up and not recognize your own face in the mirror?" At Black Hollow, that's not a metaphor. That's Rule 14. Since surviving room 13, my reflection has watched me, smiling when I'm not, blinking out of sync, mimicking memories I know I never lived. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is that it's starting to talk back. And last night, it told me the truth about what Black Hollow really is. I didn't sleep after the mirror incident. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard my name whispered over and over in my own voice, like static inside my skull. I recited my date of birth 3 times, just like the new rule instructed. But each time I said it, it sounded more wrong, like the numbers didn't belong to me anymore. I covered the mirror with a black towel, duct taped it to the wall, and even shoved it behind the bed. But the reflection, it moved. Even when the mirror was hidden, I could see its outline flickering in every reflective surface. Sink, window, even the polished floors. It was always smiling, always waiting. At 3:33 a.m., I heard a knock at the door. 3 slow taps. Then silence. Then another 3. Louder. Urgent. I checked the peephole. Nothing. Then I turned around, and the mirror was uncovered again. This time, the reflection wasn't me. It was someone else entirely. Patient number 42. I recognized him instantly. A man with hollow eyes, wrapped in bandages, teeth far too large for his mouth. He was listed on the internal database as deceased. Autopsy result: suicide by mirror shard ingestion. His last written note before he died, scribbled in his own blood. The mirror ate the wrong version of me, and now he was inside mine. I ran to the nurse's station, hoping for help. Ellis wasn't there. Neither was Dr. Crane. But Harold, the maintenance guy, the one with the melted skin and stitched together jaw, was standing at the end of the corridor, holding a sledgehammer. He pointed to me, then to the mirror in my room. Then he made a throat-slashing motion and disappeared. That was all the permission I needed. I sprinted back, grabbed the hammer from the emergency glass case on the wall, and shattered the mirror with one swing. The moment it broke, a scream tore through the walls of the hospital. Not from a person, from the building itself. Lights burst, doors slammed open and shut, sprinklers triggered in reverse, sucking moisture in instead of spraying it out. Something had been released, and I had no idea what. As I tried to catch my breath, a new yellow slip slid from the vent. Rule 15. If a mirror breaks while your reflection is still active, report to sublevel 3 immediately for containment initiation. Do not delay. If you see yourself outside of containment, you've already been replaced. Sublevel 3 wasn't on the staff map. I had to dig out a copy of the original blueprints from a locked archive drawer labeled "Do Not Access Without Escort." The elevator didn't have a button for sublevel 3, but it did have a keyhole. And inside the envelope with the mirror shard evidence, I found a small brass key labeled SL3 Echo Wing. I jammed it in. The elevator shook violently, like it didn't want to go there. Then it dropped, straight down. Sublevel 3 didn't feel like part of the hospital. It felt ancient. The walls were made of stone, not concrete or tile. Moss grew in the cracks, and the ceiling was so low I had to crouch. Everything was lit by gas lanterns hanging from rusted chains. The air smelled like salt and copper, and the shadows didn't behave. They moved on their own. My flashlight dimmed as I walked past a row of glass tanks, each one containing a reflection. Not a person, just their mirror image, suspended in brine, eyes flicking side to side like trapped animals. Each tank had a label. Subject number 04 screamed in Latin. Subject number 09 refused to blink. Subject number 12 still smiling. Subject number 22 escaped for 3 minutes. I found my own tank. It was empty, and above it, written in red marker, subject number 31, pending containment. Do not interact. Then I heard it, my voice, echoing down the corridor. Only I wasn't speaking. I was laughing. The corridor opened into a chamber shaped like an inverted cone, wider at the bottom, narrowing toward a skylight far above that shouldn't have existed underground. At the center of the room stood a ring of mirrors arranged like a summoning circle, each one facing inward. And in the center of those mirrors stood me. But this version of me wasn't smiling or crying. It was empty. No pupils, no expression, just a hollow face that pulsed with static, like a living TV set stuck on the wrong frequency. I tried to run, but the mirrors spun inward, trapping me in the circle. My double stepped forward and said, "You broke me. Now I'll break you." The world flashed white. I woke up in the infirmary. Dr. Crane stood over me with a calm smile. "You did well," he said, injecting something into my 4. "Most don't make it back from sublevel 3 with their ego intact." "What was that thing?" "Your reflection," he replied. "The true one. We're all fractured when we arrive here. The mirrors simply show us the cracks." Nurse Ellis entered and handed him a clipboard. "Subject number 31 has been reabsorbed." Dr. Crane nodded. "Then the replacement cycle is complete." I sat up. "Wait, what does that mean? Am I me?" They didn't answer, just smiled. That night, in my room, I found another rule. Rule 16. If you are unsure whether you are still yourself, perform the identity stabilization protocol. Stand in front of a mirror at 3:33 a.m. Stab your palm with a silver object and watch your reflection. If it bleeds with you, you're safe. If it doesn't, destroy the mirror and report immediately. I stared at the clock. 3:32 a.m. I picked up a silver scalpel I had stolen from the infirmary earlier. This was it. Time to find out who, or what, I really was. The mirror was waiting. Have you ever looked in the mirror and realized the thing looking back isn't pretending to be you anymore? It is you. I survived room 13. I endured the mirror protocol. But now I understand. Black Hollow doesn't treat patients. It collects identities. The rules were never meant to protect me. They were meant to prepare me. Because I'm not just an employee anymore. I'm on the menu. And Black Hollow is ready for its final course. 3:33 a.m. Silver scalpel. Shaking hand. One final test. I stood in front of the mirror. My third one. The others had cracked, exploded, or simply disappeared. This one was bolted to the wall, surrounded by candles that hadn't been there before. I whispered my date of birth 3 times. Each syllable felt like swallowing glass. Then I drove the blade into my palm. Blood spilled onto the sink. Real. My reflection did nothing. It stood perfectly still. No flinch. No wound. No reaction at all. Then it smiled. Too late. It whispered. The mirror shattered. Inward. Like it was pulling itself inside out. And so was I. My bones twisted. Muscles burned. Memories began to flood backward. Childhood birthdays. My father's funeral. My first kiss. All of it rewinding like a cursive VHS tape. I fell to my knees, screaming. That's when Ellis appeared. She stormed in without knocking, clutching a bundle of thick, yellowing pages, the full rule codex. "I told them not to give you the mirror protocol," she hissed. "You weren't ready." "What the hell is happening to me?" I gasped. She slapped the rulebook down in front of me. "I broke protocol too," she said. 10 years ago. I've been on borrowed time ever since. But maybe we can still fix you." I opened the codex to a bookmark page near the end. In red letters, Rule 99. If your reflection has been severed, the original self must be buried in the memory garden before dawn. If not, reintegration is impossible. "Where's the memory garden?" I asked. Ellis looked at me like I'd already failed. "Outside, but not the normal grounds. You have to go through the veil." "What's that?" She just said, "The place where the hospital isn't." We took the service tunnel behind the morgue. The deeper we went, the less hospital things looked. Brick walls gave way to pulsating meat. Ceilings dripped black tar, and the floor started to breathe. At the end of the tunnel, a door stood carved from human teeth. Ellis turned to me. "Once we step through, time gets strange. Don't answer to your name. Don't touch anything that smells like lavender. And no matter what you see, don't dig in the wrong plot." She handed me a shovel made of bone, then opened the door. The memory garden was alive. Rows of headstones stretched infinitely, each glowing faintly with memories. Some whisper names, others pulsed with pain. Each grave was a person, or rather, who they used to be. One stone in the front row had my face carved into it. Fresh soil, a nameplate that read, "The Original." Ellis handed me a vial of my blood and nodded toward the dirt. "You have until the sun hits the garden. After that, your shadow takes over permanently." I began to dig. With every scoop of soil, I felt a piece of myself return. My laugh, my guilt, my humanity. But something was watching from behind the gravestones. Dozens of versions of me. Faces stitched wrong, eyes rotted, skin peeled back to reveal teeth that were all smiles. "You left us behind," one whispered. "You forgot what it means to be whole," said another. They moved closer. Ellis drew a line of salt around me, keeping them at bay. "Hurry." At last, I hit something solid. A burlap sack. Inside my heart. Not metaphorically. Literally. It was still beating. Ellis opened the codex and read aloud a cleansing phrase in a language I didn't recognize. I clutched my heart, pressed it to my chest, and the garden screamed. All the false versions of me erupted into ash, and the sky tore open with red lightning. My body spasmed, like I'd just been rebooted, but I was whole. Finally, back in the hospital, everything had changed. The halls were brighter. The rules were gone from my door. The patients were quieter. Ellis approached me one last time, hands trembling. "You completed the final rule," she said. "You buried your original self before the shadow could finish copying you." "What now?" "You leave," she said. "You survive." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "What about you?" She shook her head. "I failed the ritual years ago. I'm not even a full person anymore. I just remember how to act like one." Before I could say anything else, she handed me one final envelope. Rule 100. If you've completed the codex and survived, never return. Black Hollow accepts your resignation. You are free. But if you speak of what happened here, your memory will rot. Your name will be devoured, and we will find you. I left before dawn. No paperwork. No exit interview. No questions. I drove until I couldn't see the hospital in my rear view anymore, and I've never looked back. I live off the grid now. No mirrors. No photographs. No social media. I carry the rule codex in a locked case, just in case I ever start to forget again. But some nights, I wake up at exactly 3:33 a.m., and in the window reflection, I see one of them, smiling, waiting, because Black Hollow doesn't forget. It waits. The end.